Welcome to Tarunayas. Today we will be discussing editorials taken from the Hindu and Indian Express of 15th of October 2022. Please make it 15th of October. So let's start with first editorial of the day. The first editorial is the Mission Karmayogi. Now I have taken this editorial mission Karmayogi from Babus to Karamyogis from the Hindu. You can relate this topic with General Studies Paper 2, that is role of civil services in a democracy. Now basically, what is Mission Karmayogi? It attempts to change the face of civil services and make officials more responsible to public needs. Now when we speak of the civil services, as it was proclaimed by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, he said the civil services, it is the steel framework of India. And they basically they work at the lowest governance level. So in order to improve the capacity, the capability of the people, so as to fulfill the objectives that India made at the time of its independence. So civil services is nothing new in India. Civil services, earlier during the British colonial rule, they were known as the imperial civil services, and they had undergone various transformation to reach at the stage which we saw at the time of the independence. So civil services are credited to Lord Cornwallis. And at the present framework of the civil services is inspired by the struggle of our independence, the welfare socialistic policy, and the objectives of the democracy and the essence of the democracy. However, there have been many instances where civil servants have failed to deliver to the objectives that India made at the time of its independence. It had been accused of failing to contribute to the welfare and the development of the nation. So, in the face of such arguments, in 1980s, Rajiv Gandhi, the former late Prime Minister of India, had remarked about the status of the corruption in India, which had basically resulted due to the administrative failures and of course the framework and of course the complacency that has enriched in the system of bureaucracy. He said that the 1 rupee which is sent from Delhi and only 15 paisa is reached to the poor. Now the writer talks about, by giving this example or by giving this statement by former Prime Minister of India, he speaks of the corruption that is entrenched in the system, and he speaks of that how the administrative failures can lead to the failure of the governance, and good governance is one such principle that should be followed in every institution of India, so as to realize the dream of India, so as to realize the potential of the new India. And the writer also remarks that it has taken us basically decades to realize the extent of the failure that can result when all the institutions, whether they are economic institutions or political institutions, are taken up largely by the state. So the writer points out here towards the failures of the PSUs. Many of the PSUs have been running in losses, and because of the liabilities and the responsibilities of the government, all these PSUs cannot be completely abolished or cannot be privatized. Therefore, recently the government has been trying to privatize some of the PSUs. For example, Air India was sold recently to Tata. Now, this is one such example, and there have been many other examples of selling or privatization of the PSUs. So, the writer points out towards the administrative failures, whether it is an economic establishment or it is other political or governing institutions of the country. Now, the writer brings us towards, by giving such arguments, the writer brings us towards his main objective of explaining what Mission Karmayogi is and how it can transform the Indian bureaucracy. On the day of the independence, that is 14th of August 2021, Prime Minister had launched Mission Karmayogi. Now, Mission Karmayogi is basically seeks to transform the framework of the civil services in India so as to make it more responsible, accountable, and welfare oriented, more service oriented. And the mission seeks to basically build the capacity of the civil servants so as to enable them to deliver to the best of their level, and to enable them to deliver the services in India. Now, let's see the objectives of Mission Karmayogi. It seeks to develop the capacity of 20 million civil servants working at the center and the state to enable the service delivery to the population of India. Now, this is according to Census 2011, 1.2 billion. So, 20 million of the civil servants, they are to cater to the needs of this 1.2 billion of the population of India. Writer has given example that how the Mission Karmayogi can change the scenario of the bureaucracy, making transforming it from a complacent bureaucracy to a more welfare oriented and service oriented bureaucracy. Writer gives example that how the railway staffs, the 95,000 railway staffs, were trained under the mission so as to motivate them to serve. Now, the writer says that the image which is created by the Bollywood, when whether it is of the civil servants, like they are projected as some power holders, and the image of the police personnel, either they are shown as corrupt, or they are shown as wielding power in a negative light. So therefore, Mission Karmayogi, it seeks to change this negative percept which has been created by the commercial cinema. It focuses to enhance the investigative and the professional capacity. Writer gives example of the police services, that we are not going to deal in detail about the police reforms here, that we might see in a separate class. But here the writer speaks of that how the capacity of the police personnel can be enhanced, and they have to be enhanced in in two uh, in two dimensions. One is the investigative dimension, and the other one is the professional dimensions. Their skill has to be enhanced. Therefore, there is a complete reform which is needed when it comes to the recruitment, to the training, and the final posting, and other institutional changes that are required to bring about such a reform so as to motivate the police personnel to serve to the nation and to serve to the people of the country. Now, one of the important component that the writer points out of the Mission Karmayogi is the immersive learning. Now, basically, it means inculcating skills and the practical learning in the civil servants. Like, there should not be only a bookish learning and a traditional way of working. Rather, the whole work scenario needs to be changed. Like, they need to be more dynamic, and they need to be more adapting to the changing work environment, and also to the changing demands and needs of the people and the country. Now, the writer says one important thing about the Mission Karmayogi, and that is to democratize the learning. And how this learning can be democratized, writer talks about the 70, 20, and 10 formula. Basically, it means the 70% would come from the experience. That means learning while in the field posting, or learning throughout your job tenure. The 20% would come from the traditional way of learning, and the 10% of it would come from the training, the usual way of training and learning, usual way of training and learning through books, laws, and etc. So the more focus is actually given on this 70 part of the learning, and that is or the capacity building approach, the 70% of it would come from the experience which is gained or which is learned through their own through their own job tenure, and 20% of it would come from the experience of the seniors, and 10% of it would be acquired through the traditional way, or through the books, laws, etc. Now, now, after presenting all these arguments, the writer tries to conclude that the true essence of civil services is in revitalization of the civil servants and making them more oriented towards the towards the welfare of the people and towards serving the nation and serving the people of the country. Now, this was briefly that we have discussed the mission Karmayogi. And if I am to conclude mission Karmayogi, then it would be, the first point, it would be, it seeks to build the capacity. And second point, the important point that I would take out from this editorial, it would be, it seeks to democratize the learning. And third, it seeks to have a experience learning or a immersive learning. So capacity building, democratization of the learning, and democratization of the learning and immersive learning. It should not be, civil services training should not be restricted to the class 1 or class A officers. Rather, it is said that the learning is across the civil services, like from the section officer who are actually the key component when it comes to the secretariat, when it comes to administering an institution, to the higher level bureaucrats. So mission Karmayogi seeks to cover all these stages, or you can say all these group of officers that form the part of bureaucracy.